Everybody feel it come around with the rhythm, it's a sound. Everybody feel it come around with round. Everybody feel it come around with the rhythm, it's a sound. Everybody get down when we give it to you. Everybody feel it come around with round. Everybody feel it come around with round. Everybody feel it come around with round.
Hey guys, how you doing? Hope you're well. We're back trying to have another go at this exam. I had to take a day off because I was getting so stressed with it. I was just making silly mistakes. I was so impatient. I was really pushing hard when I should be careful, and so on. You saw it, you know. Let's have another go today. See how we get on. Better late than never. Oh. It is proper chilly. Let's make sure that the azimuth is not on. We don't need that kind of extra stress. It's proper cold in here today. The temperature has really dropped. Ow! And I'm connected by cable because I forgot to charge my headphones last night. So lots of stuff going wrong already. I'm actually very cold. I might put a scarf on. I've got like a motorcycle head scarf which I keep in the shed. Really, it's for cycle riding. I love a scarf. I love a good scarf. Let's just let me get straightened up here. To me, should be safe. My official 𝗤𝗂𝗁𝗄𝗂𝗁𝗲 hat on, which the developers sent me for showcasing and reviewing their game when it came out. That's the first one. Got some updates coming on that game actually. Some quite positive news, I have to say. Not quite on the same scale of realism as this, but yeah, it's heading in the right direction very slowly. I don't think it'll ever be anything other than an arcade game, but you know, even arcade games can be realistic and therefore good, so no issues there theoretically. Right, 1.6 knots of wind, which is nothing at all. You couldn't even get a sail up under that sort of, unless you're in a like a laser or something. I don't think you could get a yacht sailing with that sort of wind, so we don't need to worry too much about that. That may be a little wider than I wanted to, but it keeps our speed up. So, perfectly safe. Swings and roundabouts. I mean, we should, I think, theoretically have tried to be a little further to the starboard side, but I think we're all right. And thank you, by the way, to everyone who's replied on the NAUTIS forum. I asked how realistic was this experience, and yeah, some of you have come back with some really excellent confirmation of my thoughts. I love this tug going past. It looks so cool. Yeah, Lena. Excuse me, didn't sleep too well last night. Right, let's have heads up. Bring it down to 0.5 of a mile. Filter out the sea and the rain. Wait for the pilot to shoot across us. That would be kind of cool, actually, if the pilot could come and jump on your ship and then direct you where you should go. I think that'd be interesting. Alrighty, as soon as he crosses the bow, we'll be turning in. Synchronized sailing. Just having a very visceral flashback to my sailing down the Solent in a 50-foot yacht. I was trying to catch another yacht in front of us of about equal size, and I said to the captain, if we take him on the port side we can steal his wind. Which he was most impressed with, and yeah, he said with that sort of mentality you can come sailing with us anytime. And then to counter my suggestion, he said if we come down the starboard side and then pull across his bow, then we can like force him to basically force him to change or to tack or whatever, which yeah, it's quite funny. It is true what they say, it doesn't matter what you're doing on a sailboat, you're always racing somebody or something. Kind of groovy. I just had a flashback of it when I was coming down the first part there. Just reminded me of that moment, because it's very realistic. It's like 1-to-1 scale, this place, isn't it? So if you haven't had a chance to try NAUTIS out yet, we are talking about, what am I doing here? We are talking about, you know, almost sort of laser scanned precision, you know, like in racing games where they say, you know, the tracks have been laser scanned, so every bump, ripple, roll, camber is captured. Well, it's kind of like that. It's not laser scanned here, but I believe they're using charts and accurate scale measurements in order to recreate 1-to-1 scale environments. So at the moment we're sailing around Rotterdam, and one of the NAUTIS community members has confirmed, apologies, I forget names instantly. It's not that I don't try, it's part of my head injury. They just don't stick in my head, so I can't remember your name. I apologise for that. There's nothing I can do about it. But he said that it's very realistic and very accurate. I think he drives a train by trade, from what he was saying. But yeah, he was saying he goes through this area very, very often, and it's incredibly accurate. And that's exactly what you want to hear with a simulator. It's absolutely full on. It's really, really entertaining. You know, if you went and got on a ship today to sail through Rotterdam, I imagine not only would you recognise, I mean, what I have done is I've checked it on a map, so the map matches almost perfectly. In fact, if anything, this appears to be more precise than the map that I was comparing it with. But yeah, I mean, that's the level of detail. It's not just above ground either. You know, if there are shallows underground, they're equally well modelled and accurate. Now, there are some issues with the charts, and a lot of people have got some opinions about charts, and that makes perfect sense. I'm in 100% agreement. The buoy that we've just passed there is probably not quite in the right location. There are some issues with certain underwater ground elements not being exactly as they should, or not behaving exactly as they should, but it's the exception rather than the rule. On the most part, you are looking at something incredibly precise and incredibly realistic, to the point where, you know, what happens underneath the water is perhaps more important than what happens above the water. If it was a windy day, then that would very much affect the ability to stay on course, because the wind would just blow you in a direction. That's the level of simulation. If there was current here, which there isn't because it's an inland man-made harbour, but if there were current here, that would affect your steering dramatically. I think I've shown that enough times in enough videos. But also when we're coming up to bridges and ships like this. Now, if you look ahead, you can see we've got far more water on the port side, the left, than we do on the starboard side, the right, because this ship is here. And what happens is that causes like a drag effect, where the front end of the ship will be pushed away from the ship on the right, and the aft of the ship, the prop, will be pulled towards it. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe, depending on which way your prop is spinning, has quite a major impact on which side is going to be most affected. So because the prop is spinning, I think, clockwise on this particular ship, I believe that we are more likely to be drawn into the starboard side wall than we are the port side wall. So if you're going to go under a bridge, like we're about to do in a minute, and a little bit later on still we're going to go through a very narrow section of bridge, it's always best to stay on the to stay closer to the, if necessary, to stay closer to the port side wall. On a perfect world, you would stay well away from all sort of sides, if you will, but very much so. If you have to go through a narrow channel, which we are going to do multiple times in this exam, then stay to the port side if you can, because it will have less of an effect, I believe. Now, I haven't seen any confirmation of this. This is just something that I've come to conclude through my many attempts at this exam. So I think that's correct. Be really interested to hear from anybody who actually knows something more about it than I do. But there are other factors as well. The depth of the water that you're in dramatically affects the I guess the buoyancy of the ship. So if you're in shallow water, you can actually get like a draft effect where you get sucked even lower down into the water, just because there's less water to flow through, to process. So that in itself generates, I guess, more oxygen, which makes you heavier, which sucks you more into the water. If you reduce your throttle in a circumstance like that, then you regain some of that buoyancy, as much as 50% even, which is quite a lot. So there's an awful lot to learn. Also, if you are in shallow water, then your ability to steer is equally impacted, because once again there's less water, there's less resistance for the rudder to work with. It's, you know, it's more broken water, which means you're not getting the same level of resistance, so you can't turn as well. So many factors that you've got to take into account, and you know, you've got to do all of this whilst constantly looking around for other ships and so on. And yeah, you've got to be ahead of the ship, as they say. Don't always try and be ahead of the ship. Don't let the ship get ahead of you. Very, very important. So yeah, that's why I'm enjoying this so much. It is very, very authentic. It's the most authentic experience I've found. My only gripe with this is the subscription model. I'm not a fan of owning nothing. I'm really not. You know, classic examples are if one day they decide to turn off the servers and they are no longer supporting this game for whatever reason, I have nothing, absolutely nothing to work with, nothing to play with. And I could have spent hundreds and thousands of pounds on this game over a period of years, and then all of a sudden, at the bequest of somebody else, I no longer have access to the game. I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live like that. I really don't. Now, in some circumstances, that works. For example, Game Pass, where you get hundreds of games, and you know, when new games come out, you get new games. So it kind of works in that sense, because that is a subscription model to the newest games. And if you desperately want to keep a game, then, you know, when it comes up in a sale, you can grab it and then it's yours forever. So in that sense, I think subscription modeling works. Where it doesn't work, of course, is in a scenario like this where there's only one product, and at any time someone can take it away from you and there's absolutely nothing you can do. I would hate to see this game not succeed. I would hate to see this game not continue to progress and improve, and I just feel like a subscription model is not the right way to go. It's my personal opinion. It's not really about the cost either. Well, actually partly it is about the cost, you know, but say I play this game for 10 years at £10 a month, that's £120 a year, you're looking at more than £1,000. That's more money than I've paid on any sim I've ever owned, and you've still got the issue whereas at any moment somebody could take it away from you. That really is my sticking point. I cannot get past that, and it really worries me that the game is going to cease to exist because of the subscription model. Now, I've asked this question openly to my community, and quite a lot of people have come back and said, you know, Microsoft Flight Simulator, for example, I paid £120 for that. That's more money than I've ever paid for any game ever. And probably more than I wanted to pay. But as a content creator, it was important for me to have all the bells and whistles, I guess. And I don't regret that purchase. You know, I have enjoyed playing Microsoft Flight Simulator a lot. But the thing with that is, I own that game forever. I say forever. Hopefully, it's not going to be an online... Because again, you know, the problem with online games is, if they take down the server, I'm screwed. I've got no way of playing. So there is a bit of concern about that. But yeah, the primary focus, I think, has to be a base game that you can purchase with a small number of ships and a small number of locations, and then DLCs for any additional stuff. So, you know, people pay £30 for an airport on Microsoft Flight Simulator. Personally, I would never do that. I think that's an absolute rip-off. If you think how many airports there are in the world, it's just not. I think they're massively overcharging for what they're doing there. But in contrast, £30 to get access to Rotterdam, I think would be really reasonable. I really do. So people are looking perfectly happy to pay, let's say, £100 for the base game, and then £30 for any ship or any location that gets released alongside the game. And I think that approach will bring in more customers and theoretically more money. I can understand why they went for a subscription model, because that's how NAUTIS operate, and that makes sense in a business world, because the business don't care if they don't own the product, because it's a training tool. There'll always be another training tool, or they always want the training tool to improve. It makes sense in business. It doesn't make sense with home simulator fans. It really doesn't. And this whole world philosophy of, you know, you'll own nothing and be happy, it rubs me up the wrong way like you wouldn't believe. That's how the Let Them Eat Cake lady lost her head. Yeah? If you see what I mean. Right, so we're coming up to a very narrow, possibly shallow section of water here, and we're going to be affected by the quay side on the starboard side there to our right fairly early on. So I'm going to try and position our ship hard to the left or hard to the port side, and try and ensure that we don't get excuse me, hiccups, sucked in to that right hand side, because although steering into it does work to an extent, for me, and I'm not quite sure why this is happening, I find I get sucked in like a magnet to the port side, whereas technically that shouldn't happen. But if you saw me doing the test exam where you have to turn in and sail alongside a key wall, you can see how difficult it is. It's surprising. So I'm a little bit baffled why the approach that has been taught to me, aka to steer into the wall, doesn't actually appear to work properly. It's probably something I'm doing wrong. It could be a bug in the game. It's very difficult for me to know because I'm not a real world captain. So right, so we are likely to start feeling the effects of this pretty soon. Very tight up against this left edge here. I'm just keeping an eye on the information in front of me. You can see we're currently turning 5 degrees to port, and that's nothing other than the effect of that key wall. Start turning back in a smidge. Now fighting against that effect. So if I put the nose of the ship down the middle, theoretically that effect should start pushing the bow of the ship back towards this port side, because at the moment we have nothing down the port side, so there's no resistance on this side, but all the resistance is coming from our right, our starboard side, and pushing us towards the port side. So we're going to come down the middle, and hopefully the nose, you can see, is starting 3 degrees already, 4 degrees, pushing over. The aft is coming in and getting closer and closer and closer to this wall side here. You see how we're turning? That's not me doing it, that's just the effect of the water, but it doesn't seem to neutralize. If you look, when we go past this section on our port side now, it doesn't neutralize that effect. It doesn't maintain it centrally, not in the way I was expecting it to. So yeah, there's, I think, much more for me to learn in that regard. But just that section there, for me, just that bridge alone is a really good indication of how accurate this game is, and how precise this game is, and how realistic this game is. I call it a game. It's a sim. It really is a sim. So I mean, if that's something that you're looking for, like a realistic ship sim, I don't think there's any better out there. I really don't. And, you know, the kickback is going to be, yeah, but look at the graphics. And, you know, there are no graphical options. This is not necessarily intended to work on triple screens, which is how I'm running it. But I've dragged it across the 3 screens, and it's kind of auto-adjusted itself, which you could argue is very clever. And it looks great. Everything seems to be in proportion. You know, it does work. The FPS doesn't appear to be impacted at all. But I don't feel like it's necessarily optimized. I don't think it's perfectly optimized. And because there are no graphical adjustment settings available to us as players, Yeah, so yeah, sorry, that's something I'm going to have to deal with. Another argument I'm going to have with another company that's trying to rip me off. Ah, business these days, they just have no morals, do they? Greedy, 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 greedy buggers. I genuinely think, sorry to go slightly off on a tangent, but I have to fill this segment with something. You know, I genuinely think, if I were Prime Minister, I'd make it illegal for companies to change how much they charge you per month when you have a contract. I think if they have a contract and you've agreed to pay them a certain amount, you'll continue to pay them a certain amount and nothing more. I don't care if inflation has gone up. They agreed with you a contract and they shouldn't be able to put the price up. If I get a really good deal, fantastic, because when inflation goes up and they start charging people £40–50 instead of £30, then, you know, when inflation goes back down again, they're not going to reduce the amount that you're paying, are they? So they're going to make money out of you that way, but you've agreed that contract. And if what they're asking you to pay is too high, then you don't take that contract, and that's how it should work. But the way that they can change how much they charge you each month based on mitigating factors that have nothing to do with you, nothing to do with them, doesn't improve your product, their product or your service, I don't see why you should have to pay any extra for that. I think it's absolutely disgraceful. Anyway, got that off my chest. I'm going to go argue with my mobile phone company, who appear to be ripping me off left, right and centre at the moment. Which is annoying because I've been with them for like 12 years. And they say, thank you for being a customer, we really value you. Now we're going to try and rip you off every time we get a chance. Customer service, eh? I think it would fix a lot of problems, actually, having fixed contracts. Because if you've agreed a price for a quality of product and they continue to provide you with that product at the price you agreed to pay, why are you going to get narky? Why are you going to get upset with that? Why are you going to look elsewhere? You're going to be happy, aren't you? And they should be happy because you're happy and therefore you're paying your bills on time. I think it just makes so much more sense than what they do these days. The other thing I hate is if you take a contract out and then they offer a better deal to new customers. What? What? How flipping dare you? Anyway. I digress somewhat. And I guess actually, thinking about it, it's kind of applicable here as well, isn't it? So, you know, we're agreeing to pay a monthly subscription price. What's to stop them from changing that price? You have to be careful of these sort of things. I'm not saying that they will, or that they're intending to do that, but, you know, businesses these days, it's all about the bottom line. They really don't care how it affects you. In fact, I am going to go off on a tangent here, I can't stop myself. In fact, what I've noticed is with businesses these days is that they will deliberately make their product worse in order to get you to pay more money. Right? Absolutely ridiculous. So let me think of some examples. So YouTube, before Google took over, used to have a feature where you could, on your mobile phone, keep the video you're watching open in a little window whilst you read some emails, browse some websites, whatever, and the video would stay there and keep playing. It was a feature. They got rid of that feature, and now they're going to give it back to us if you pay some money. If you subscribe to their monthly no ads thing, then they'll give you back a feature that was there previously. And I think that's outrageous. Similar situation, Amazon used to have a contract with them, like a music contract, where I could stream 10 million songs to 5 devices or something like that. I forget now. And it just cocked up all the Alexas in the house just went, no, sorry, something's gone wrong. And I was on technical support for hours and hours. I'm talking hours, like 4 hours on one conversation. And better go over here, give him some space. In the end, after that 4-hour conversation, or during, by the way, we didn't find a solution to this problem. During that 4-hour conversation, I just said to him, look, cancel my contract, I don't want this anymore. I'll go back to the basic Prime, because I have Amazon Prime. I pay £90 a year or whatever it is. With that, with Prime, you get one device can play 10 million songs, which I think I always felt was quite reasonable. You know, if I want to listen to something and my daughter wants to listen to something, we can't, so I just let her listen to it. I'm not that bothered. So anyway, yeah, it worked. It worked absolutely fine. I was quite happy with that. I didn't have any of the hassle of none of the devices working. We always had one device that worked, so much better, quite happy. Well, 2 months ago, they introduced a new feature. Not a feature to make it better, a feature to make it worse. So if I said, if I asked it to play Michael Jackson songs, it used to just play Michael Jackson songs, you know, and you get a whole mixture. Sometimes you get the same song, but a different version of it, you know, which is, you know, irritating, but not a big problem. But now what happens is that it says, when you ask it to play Michael Jackson, it says playing songs by Michael Jackson and other similar artists. Why? You never asked for that. It never used to do it. They've introduced this new feature to force you to pay for an upgrade. For the upgrade which I had previously and didn't like because it didn't work properly. And just to make sure that it's as irritating as possible, they also, so say you're listening to Michael Jackson songs and one comes on that you don't like and you skip it, you can now only skip, I think, 3 times in 1 hour. This is a service that I pay for, and they've deliberately made it worse in order to try and get me to pay more money for a service that I already had before they took it away. That is absolutely disgraceful. I cannot even begin to explain how angry that makes me. If Jeff Bezos came round to check out my sim, I would tell him this, and if he didn't immediately apologise and change it, I think I'd probably punch him in the face. More than once. In fact, repeatedly, until he stopped breathing is a possibility. That's how angry it makes me. Because it's theft. It's theft, it's underhanded, it's immoral, it's unnecessary. And things like that really trigger me, like a good proper Englishman. Oh, to go off on another tangent, just to keep the conversation going, I have probably a handful of role models, male role models, which I base my personality and behaviour on. One of which is Due South, Canadian Mountie. I think it's an American program. And Mountie ends up in America somehow. I forget now how. I'm gonna have to watch that series again. Absolutely loved that. The guy's name was Fraser, and he was just incredibly polite, incredibly respectful, incredibly considerate yet brave, and blah 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 blah. Like in my eyes, like exactly what I wanted to be as a person, and I tried to emulate him as much as I possibly could for a lot of my life. Not so much since the car accident. That's another story. But one of my other key personalities, a chap called Errol Flynn. You probably heard of him. Massive Hollywood actor. Really, really excellent films. Many, many excellent films. And quite often played the perfect English gentleman. But I discovered yesterday he's actually Australian. Which technically, long story short, makes him English. So I'm not completely appalled by that information. And I have nothing against Australians. I love Australia. I don't like the spiders. Or the snakes, for that matter. But other than that, I love Australia. Yeah, that was a bit of a shock to the system, because I always thought Errol Flynn was British to some degree. And he is, to some degree. He is British. You know, Australians are fundamentally British to an extent. There's still a bit of Britishness in them. They're still part of the Commonwealth, you know, so it's, I mean, it's not that far-flung. But to think that I sort of shape myself on a Canadian and an Australian was a bit of a shock to the system. You could argue Canadians are somewhat British as well. There's an element of Britishness to Canadians, equally. So yeah, wow. How many tangents have we hit today? Do I get a bonus thumbs up? Yeah, I should ask more, shouldn't I? Please hit the thumbs up button and the like button. And leave comments below, because it all helps with the YouTube algorithm. I don't suppose anyone's watching at this point, but this is becoming more and more of a hobby than a business, because it's not successful enough to be a business. So that's okay, because it's pushing me back in a direction that I always wanted to go in, and but for a car crash would have gone in anyway, I think. So watch this space next year, guys. Could be some big news coming from me heading your way. If you're a family man or family woman or a child, or just somebody with good old-fashioned British values or similar, you know, how do I explain what I just said there? So I went to Norway recently, and the Norwegian people are just fantastic. Or the Norwegian people that I met, really smart, really kind, really honest, really genuine people. That's what I mean by British values: honesty, respectful, considerate, kind. Christian values, I guess you'd say. So yeah, that's what I mean. Right, guys, we are heading to the scary part. I have never got past this. I really need to concentrate. I need to slow down. I need to complete this. I've worked so hard on this exam and I've really struggled to get through this next section. Can you see the anxiety? Can you hear the anxiety in my voice? See it in my face? Gone from being quite chilled out and relaxed to incredibly tense and uncomfortable. Oh, bloody hell. And it's getting colder in here too. Right, so we should have a ship coming out of the port hole to our starboard side. And we're going to follow him through at about 3 knots. Even though he goes through much faster than 3 knots, I'm going to try and go through really slowly today. Very nervous about this. Incredibly nervous about this. Right, let's line ourselves up in the entrance. So I'm going to try and stay away from the starboard side quay wall and try and stay left, which is what that ship does, but he's much better at it than I am. And because this ship is so long, it is really difficult to keep things on an even keel. There's no current, very little wind, so this really shouldn't be as difficult as I'm finding it. In my head, anyway. Right, let's drop the speed a bit. So we're ticking over at, say, 30 knots, 30%, 153 RPM, and currently doing 5 knots. Just going to try and get ourselves centralised. Quicker if you don't mind. Doing 3.4 knots, which is what was recommended. Three knots feels so slow. Start turning in. You see how it's going in at an angle? That's what I need to try and do. Pretty much matching his angle. I wish I could use the binoculars here, zoom in here, because although it looks like I am lined up slightly more to the left, very difficult to tell from that camera view how much over I need to come, whether I'm exactly in the right spot. Very tricky. And you can see he's going through much faster than I am. Right. It's 40%. So close to the starboard side, isn't he? That ship in front. Look how close he is. Look, he's right on the cusp of touching that edge. That's part of the difficulty. Lined up perfectly straight, which is a little bit of a concern. I have come very close to completing this a number of times. I'm most successful when I'm doing 6.5 knots, truth be told. But so far I've not managed to do anything to really help me get any closer to completing this section, which is horrible. Okay, so we're lining up, I think, quite nicely. space there to swing in. And of course we're going to get the effect from the port wall, I hope. Pushing the front end to the right. See it's happening now, it's starting to come round. Which we want it to do. Not too fast, it has to be controlled. Said that. Now feel like it needs to happen a bit quicker. See, look, we are moving to the right at 0.1 knots, which is the opposite of what we want. God, this is so scary. See, look, we are coming closer and closer to this side now. Don't really know how to stop that from happening. Got a bit of bow thruster pushing the bow to port, and then I'm trying to counteract that by steering into the starboard side wall, and that seems to be bringing us slightly more centralized. I've tried to do this before, but I seem to be having more luck with it right now. We are very close to doing this. Come on, baby. Now I'm a bit concerned about this side. Through. we've actually done it. Woohoo! Yes! OMG. Have we worked hard for that or what? Right, so I've no idea what's over here now. No idea whatsoever. We're going to use the bow thruster to turn the front of the ship round. I can't show you that from an external point of view. Wow, there's a 𝗕𝗏𝗂𝗃𝗬𝗁𝗏 over here. Whopping great big ship. Ah, man. I worked so hard for that. Boys, thank you so much for the advice. I guess what I needed was a bit of time to chill out and get my head in the game somewhat. So I can see where we are supposed to be docking over here on my third screen. I don't know if you can see it or not, but again, you know, we are far from there because we still need to get the ship parked up and docked without touching anything. So it's not over yet, and there's a tugboat right in front of me that's trying to make my life more difficult than it needs to be. Right, so we're travelling at 1 knot at the moment. Let's go to 60% power. Wow. Oh man, I'm ecstatic but equally as anxious. I don't know if I could ever do that again. I do now feel like I have perhaps some greater understanding of how to do that. I'm pretty sure I can go through there at full speed now that I've done it once. But I really hope they add that as a training module, because I would love to practice that 100,000 times until I can do it with my eyes closed. Right, so this looks like a completely straight in sort of deal. I just need to get the ship straightened up and lined up and then come in and slow down to below 1 knot without cocking it up. Much easier said than done, I have to say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to aim for that rear pin. I'm just going to change my starboard cameras. Better reflect what I want to happen here. Bring the speed right down. I'll be over the bloody moon if I do this, I really am. It's going to be such a relief if I can just park. It'll all be over. I can stop stressing about this. This has taken me nearly a week, this mission. doesn't look big enough to park in. This angle a bit better, because at the moment I'm just going in skew width. We don't want that. And obviously we have a key wall there, so that's going to drag us in. So we've got to sort of take a bit of thought and consideration around that. Yeah, we seem to be sidestepping slightly, which again is not exactly what I was hoping for. Okay, settling down a bit now. No, it's still sidestepping slightly. Fairly good. A small amount of propulsion. Yeah, see, look, we're being sucked into the flipping key side now. Ship turn in. Yeah, we're not turning in, are we? Baby, please line up. We're not quite in on this side. I don't think we're quite in. Yes! Okay, it kind of let us off a little bit there, I think. We're just inside that yellow beacon. Oh, man, alive. Oh. Wow. Wow. I really encourage you to come and try this game out. You know, even if you only pay a subscription for 1 month and just try it out for $5, it's definitely worth a look. It's the most authentic sim I think I've ever played. Possibly ever. Still some work to do, probably, but yes, we did it! Oh, so glad. I am so glad. That was absolutely epic. Absolutely epic. Oh. What's next? What is next? What's the next thing? From 𝗦𝘂𝗄𝗯𝗃 to the shipyard. It's going to take 2 hours. Brilliant. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comment section your thoughts on everything today. And, you know, the camera positions, the angle, the lighting, the camera, the audio, the game itself. I'm curious and interested in any of your thoughts. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, take care. Goodbye for now.
Everybody feel it come around with the rhythm, it's a sound. Every feel it come around with round. Everybody feel it come around with the rhythm, it's a sound. Everybody get down when we give it to you. Everybody feel it come around with round. Everybody feel it come around with round. Everybody feel it come around with round.